Okay, hoping this one works. Looks better? Okay, good. Let's hope it's worked. We're back till now and see. Yep, be back. Looks better. Hi, mouse. Okay, can you do me one favor, everyone? Smash the like buttons and smash the retweet buttons again. Is this new or previous? This is new. This is new. This is a new one now. Even Miles CMF, Manny, good to see you. How you doing? Okay. So, going back to what we were saying, essentially, before this situation happened, but I have to say the disclaimer again. Let's do the intro, quick disclaimer, and then we'll go straight back into the live show. Welcome to the CMF live show. If you're watching this for the first time ever, the CMF stands for Crypto Mouse Family. My name is Miles. You can tune into this live Monday to Friday, 10 p.m. London time onwards for the most recent news regarding cryptocurrency, CBDCs, AI politics, and regulations. Pretty much vital information for you to know about regarding the world completely transforming into a digital space. Disclaimer of this live show is not financial advice, no political advice, and whatever I say is only for entertainment purposes. This is episode 411 of the CMF live show, part 2 pretty much, because part 1 was a bit distorted. Okay, it's still a bit crackly, but not lagging. Okay, at least it's not lagging. It seems better now. Okay, it's better, Miles. Okay. Good evening, Miles and CMF. Good evening, Miles and family. Susie, good to see you. How are you doing? Seems better now. Okay. Thanks so much to everyone who's already liked. Again, smash the like button, smash the retweet buttons, and let's get back into the live show. Now, moving on essentially from what CoinShares had to say, which was regarding the market space, just in case you missed it on part 1 of the live show because I had to delete it. Part 2 of the live show, essentially, just to give you a little heads up, CoinShares essentially delisted and redacted essentially their filings for a Solana ETF, XRP ETF, and a Litecoin ETF, not because they don't see any sort of hope inside the crypto space, but because there was too much competition inside the crypto space. And they would rather put their focus essentially in an IPO rather than essentially going for these ETFs because they can't compete with the likes of Franklin Templeton. So that's why CoinShares essentially withdrew their applications. Now, moving on essentially from CoinShares to Cathie Woods. Cathie Woods predicts crypto recovery as liquidity issues ease. Cathie Woods of essentially ARK Invest predicts a crypto market recovery due to improved liquidity following essentially the Federal Reserve's expected end to quantum essentially tightening in December. This anticipated reversal in liquidity could drive essentially cryptocurrencies market growth backed by ARK Invest and proactive essentially increases in crypto stock holdings, reflecting confidence in enhanced liquidity dynamics. Cathie Woods, CEO of ARK Invest, anticipates a turn inside the crypto markets due to the end of the liquidity squeeze situation that's been going on. Her prediction came during ARK Invest essentially November webinar as she essentially examines such recent developments in the financial markets. Woods is joined by Arthur Hayes, the BitMEX essentially co-founder, and predicting improvements as USD liquidity sees an upswing. Both leaders expect market conditions to favor investments, reflecting in ARK Invest essential streak stock acquisitions. This is what Cathie Woods had to say. We expect the liquidity squeeze to reverse within the next few essentially weeks. According to Cathie Woods and a few other CEOs inside the crypto space, expect a reversal, a major reversal inside the crypto space within a few weeks. Stablecoins have become a big force, and this is only beginning of this category, said Cathie Woods. The ending of liquidity squeeze is expected to manifest positively inside the market trends, with the Federal Reserve stance notably shifting. The anticipated rate cuts may bolster investor optimism in the coming months. ARK Invest has accordingly boosted its stake in crypto-related stocks, acquiring millions in Coinbase and other entities, further essentially underscoring expectations of enhanced liquidity aiding market movements. And historical parallels do suggest that as liquidity constraints loosen, a rally in asset prices may manifest. Previous easing essentially policies by the Feds have typically led to asset appreciation, impacting major cryptocurrencies. Looking forward, the possibility of a regulatory shift, including essentially enhanced government scrutiny or new essentially technological breakthroughs, could frame future market dynamics. However, the current projections by Woods and Hayes remains optimistic regarding liquidity inputs inside the market space. This is just essentially their, their own perspectives regarding the market space, but according to their own researchers, their own study tests, they see some sort of a liquidity within a few weeks entering essentially the market space. What they're basing it on is that every time we have a downtrend inside the crypto space, Tether, in other words, USDT, USDC, RLUSD, PYUSD, and the list goes on, for all these stablecoins, they start printing more stablecoins because more people will shift in downturns to stablecoins, which means new stablecoins will be printed also to cover that side. And then when the market does a reversal, the new stablecoins and the old stablecoins, people moving to stablecoins, will shift over in terms of liquidity inside the crypto market space. Now, moving on essentially from Cathie Wood's perspective and Arthur Hayes' perspective, which is quite bullish, to Bitwise. A Bitwise analyst discusses Bitcoin's future going forward. This is the most important analysis I've done so far, is what essentially the Bitwise analyst had to say. Andrea, Bitwise's essentially European research director, described his new study on the relationship between Bitcoin and macroeconomic indicators as the most important Bitcoin and macro essential analysis I've ever done. Andrea analyzed how Bitcoin reflects global growth expectations by asking the fundamental question in financial markets: what is the market currently pricing in? Andrea explained that he combined various macroeconomic essential surveys and data to determine which global growth scenario Bitcoin is pricing in. The results indicate that Bitcoin is pricing in an extremely essentially pessimistic global growth outlook, a level not seen since the 2022 Fed tightening, the FTX crash essentially situation, and the COVID 2020 situation. Bitcoin is currently pricing in a growth environment that portends a recession. The experts said, in other words, most of the bad news has already been reflected in Bitcoin's price, so expect a reversal. Andrea also stated that the macro outlook can sometimes be mispriced and that such periods are the most productive, essential, or generating information, noting that Bitcoin can both exceed and sometimes also fall short of macro expectations. Describing himself as a contrarian on macro issues, Andrea stated that he believes the current outlook represents one of these unique opportunities. According to Andreas, growth expectations in the global economy have actually entered re-escalation phases, and this trend is expected to strengthen until 2026. However, Andreas said that Bitcoin is still recession pricing, arguing essentially that this mismatch creates a strong bullish base. The last time I saw such a situation risk return environment was during COVID-19. Bitcoin recovered rapidly after the March 2020 shock and surged sixfold by the end of the year. We may be facing a similar macro setup now. There's a sense of trapped energy like a bull being held underwater, he describes the crypto market space. Interesting way of describing a bull held underwater. If you let go of the bull, what's going to happen? The bull's going to be bouncing up. So imagine, essentially, according to Andrea, the head of research, the director of research at Bitwise and the European offices, and Arthur Hayes and Cathie Woods, the CEO of ARK Invest, all the CEOs, crypto space, or analysts from the crypto space, or now major analysts from the crypto space, are coming out and suggesting that we could be on a reversal moment right now. Now, moving off essentially Cathie Woods and essentially Andreas, the research director at Bitwise European office, to global market trading disrupted by the CME futures outage. Before we talk about that, let's go inside the comment section first. Let's see what's happening there, and then go straight into the next news on tonight's live. So let's see where we're at. I think it's just people. I think it's just everyone saying we're good now. It seems better now. It's fine. Let's go off it, bro. Let's go, Miles, aka the GOAT. Let's go, Miles, part 2. Not much better. No, much better. Where? Okay. Miles, do not forget about Monday section, just in your opinion. As I said, regarding MON, the ticker Monday, essentially, it's not a must-have project. The new crypto project under the ticker MON, it's not a must-have project, in my opinion, at all. It's an interesting project. It seems like a legitimate project, but it's just another version of essentially a Xamon wallet or essentially a Trust wallet where they offer you some sort of a crypto app store. They haven't introduced anything new. They don't really have any sort of essentially major partnerships under their belts. They are fairly new, so you could say that's why there's no major partnerships. And also regarding licensing, they're in the decentralized sector, so it's difficult for them to get any sort of licensing. So they're operating in some sort of a gray area, and 90% of their tokens still haven't been released. I don't know if they're burning them or they have burned some of them or so on, but 90% of their token circulation still hasn't been released either. So there's a lot of red flags on that crypto project that people should be aware of. Now, share the live. Let's go share the live. Remind family and friends there is a group of honor-supported folks and crypto facts. I hope that everyone is enjoying your family and friends during the holidays here in the US. Let's go. Happy holidays if you are inside the US as well. Now, there was a situation inside the CME. Trading of futures and options on the Chicago essentially exchange was halted by a data center fault, causing hours of disruptions to markets across equities, foreign exchange, bond, and essentially commodities. The malfunction is already longer than a essentially similar hours-long outage due essentially the technical error back in 2019, and essentially underscores the reach of the CME group and its global essentially electronic trading platform. It triggered a widespread frustration as market participants essentially contemplated the prospects of lost trading sessions. The Chicago exchange essentially went through a massive outage situation, which wasn't a great image for the US in any sort of a way. Halted a lot of stocks, halted a lot of trading, and people were frustrated inside the stock market. Millions of contracts tracking the S&P 500, Dow Jones Industrial Average, and Nasdaq trade 100 trade every weekday, virtually around the clock on the CME, one of the world's largest derivative exchanges. A spokesperson for the group confirmed that the outage was due to cooling issues at the data centers run by CyrusOne, a Dallas-headquartered operator, but did not provide an estimated reopen time. The outage halted during essentially the US Treasury of futures, while European and essentially UK bond markets that trade on different exchanges were essentially unaffected. It's a bit like flying essentially dark, said Thompson, the head of equity sales at TP ICAP Europe in Paris. Now, some people have come out and said that, if they do move over to a crypto essentially based, a decentralized system for trading, then scenarios like this wouldn't be happening. So the crypto space is gloating that the CME situation happened, in other words, you could say. Now, moving on from the CME situation that halted trades, which wasn't a great image, to the UK. The UK is about to be introducing something that most people don't like inside the crypto space, which is taxes. And simpler put, snitching. Exchanges, essentially, are going to be sharing information with the HMRC starting 2026 by the looks of it. So if you're somebody that is inside the United Kingdom and you're using essentially any crypto exchange that is essentially regulated in some sort of a way or works with the British government, then that exchange is now going to be sharing information with the HMRC, which means if you haven't been paying any crypto taxes, then you could be liable for crypto taxes. Now, it's not confirmed for 2026, but they are having discussions regarding 2026. So here it is. Crypto exchanges operating inside the United Kingdom will be required to collect detailed transactional data from all UK-based users starting January 1st, 2026. Under the new HM Revenue and Customs HMRC rules, platforms must keep a complete record of user activity and transmit it to the tax office in 2027. The essential move aligns the UK with the OSED essentially crypto asset reporting framework, which is already being adopted in the EU, Canada, Australia, Japan, and South Korea. The UK is about to go under the same set of essentially rules and regulations for the crypto space that essentially, once again, the EU is already under. Canada is already under it, Australia is already under it, Japan and South Korea are on the same regulations the UK is about to be joining, which is crypto exchanges reporting on people. However, how it's going to start essentially is for all these countries that I essentially just read out, starting January, all of the crypto exchanges that operate in your jurisdictions legally are now going to be recording every single one of your transactions on these crypto exchanges. And then when 2027 comes around, they're going to be sharing that information with your governments. So for 1 year, crypto exchanges are now going to be tracking your every footsteps. But this is crypto exchanges that are already operating in your jurisdictions legally. So for example, MEXC exchange is not really regulated in the United Kingdom, so they wouldn't be sharing any sort of information. Binance is not really regulated either. Coinbase is regulated, so they will be sharing information. Crypto.com would be sharing information. Kraken would be sharing information. KuCoin would be sharing information, but depending on different jurisdictions, to be fairly honest. But there are a few exchanges that wouldn't be sharing information and a few exchanges that would be sharing information due to the regulatory foothold that these exchanges may have in different jurisdictions, just so you know. And a lot of people have said that if this does happen, then they're going to be transferring over to the decentralized space because nobody can essentially share that information with the governments. Now, I'm not suggesting anything to anybody. If you want to trade on whatever platform you want to trade on, that's your choice. That's your given right. I'm just sharing the news regarding the crypto exchanges that will be sharing information, crypto exchanges that won't be sharing information until they get the correct licensing. And what date is the starting, or will it be backdated? Starting is 1st of January 2026. So from the 1st of January 2026, the crypto exchanges that are holding some sort of licensing in the EU, Canada, Australia, Japan, and South Korea will be sharing information in 2027, but they're going to record your footsteps starting January 1st, 2026. Apparently, there's no backtracking, just going forward. Now, the CEO of tax insurance provider QDots told the Financial Times regarding that, essentially, that once exchanges begin recording this data, the tax office will be able to cross-check tax returns against the data they've received. He added that users effectively have until the end of 2026 to get their affairs in order to avoid penalties. So until the end of 2026, if you are using these crypto exchanges, then you would obviously have to be abiding by the law. The change brings crypto reporting closer to the standards applied to traditional financial accounts. For exchanges classified as reporting crypto asset sales providers, the obligation applies essentially across all wallet activity, including deposits, withdrawals, trading, transfer, and disposables. Non-compliant platforms can face enforcement. Now, what they mean by non-compliant platforms can face enforcement is, again, platforms like MEXC that are not regulated in the United Kingdom or anywhere, or essentially other jurisdictions. MEXC will essentially be banned in the UK. Technically, MEXC still is banned in the UK, but it can still be used as far as I'm aware. Not suggesting for anybody to go start running towards MEXC because they don't report, just, again, sharing information with people. As far as I know, MEXC is banned, but still can be used. Binance has some sort of licensing to operate, some sort of license not to operate. But again, if these crypto exchanges want to become legitimate exchanges, they have to obviously start reporting. Now, the UK government, and this is in a way good news, because if we're moving towards crypto tax, that means that crypto space is about to become a much more mature place. So it's not really bad news in a way. It's, the crypto space is becoming essentially much more mature place regarding taxation of cryptocurrencies. But again, it depends on the exchanges. So the UK government has set a timeline for formal legislations, but the HMRC says it will continue discussions with industry groups as it weighs in the case for turning the proposal into law. The country's twin-track approach, tighter reporting, and more essentially workable DeFi tax model places it among the first major jurisdictions attempting to modernize the tax rules while expanding oversight. If the rules proceed, 2026 and 2027 will become transition years for both platforms and users. Exchanges must upgrade compliance systems, while the UK traders and investors may need to revisit years of wallet activity to prepare for expanded reporting. The combination of mandatory data collections and a clearer DeFi tax framework sets the stage for a more structured relationship between the HMRC and the crypto sector. Once the full reporting regime lands, the margin for informal or incomplete declarations will shrink essentially sharply. So, in other words, that the backtracking situation will be on yourself. So it seems that the crypto exchanges will have to become compliant in these jurisdictions. More countries will be joining the list, obviously. And that regarding backtracking situations, that's up to you to sufficiently share the backtracking. The exchange is only going to start tracking your footsteps starting January 1st, no backtracking, but the backtracking is going to be up to you when the tax man comes knocking or sends a letter to you regarding crypto, essentially footsteps, the backtracking is up to you. The proposal brings tax treatments closer to how DeFi activity actually works, reducing the mismatch between protocol mechanisms and tax outcomes, but it does not eliminate all taxable triggers. Buying essentially ETH, converting it to essentially wrapped ETH, or later cashing out gains from protocol earnings will still incur tax. The draft excludes tokenized real-world assets and traditional securities from the NGNL definition, keeping the scope centered on DeFi native tokens only. Regarding essentially real-world asset situations, they're not taxing it. Real-world assets are extremely beneficial for institutions and major banks, and I wonder why they're not looking into taxation for that. But for the retail section, essentially holding crypto tokens, they want to tax them into the ground. I mean, the rules haven't changed much. The little guy always gets taxed into the ground, while the big guy walks away paying minimal. It's just how the world operates. So yeah, regarding real-world asset tokenizations, they're not really looking into taxation for that at all. They couldn't care less. All they care about is the little guy holding the crypto projects. HMRC says it's still collecting input to refine the model, noting that 32 formal responses were received from groups including Aver, Binance. So here's a list of companies that essentially, made contact with the British government regarding this whole taxation scenario. Here's some of them essentially. Aver, Binance, Dilute, and Crypto UK. Most respondents supported the shift, though some warned that applying repo-style rules or treating every token movement as taxable would make compliance unmanageable for retail users. In other words, essentially that people would be moving out the United Kingdom if the UK is going to be taxing everybody every footstep they take inside the crypto space. Then it's just not an innovative place to live in regarding essential cryptocurrencies. So in the UK, we had so far 10,000 millionaires to billionaires leave in 2024. The numbers are not in for 2025 yet, but it seems like people inside the crypto space are also going to be leaving alongside the millionaires and billionaires that are taking their businesses out of the United Kingdom. Style rules are treating every token movement as taxable. The users may still be required to report large volumes of transactions, even if many are no longer disposable. HMRC said it is working with software providers to assess the reporting load. So, also regarding the UK situation, not only is the UK thinking about, taxing you every footstep you take, adding to the whole taxing situation with Australia, Japan, South Korea, and so on. Also, the UK's regarding crypto promotions rule is stopping innovation. According to Aver's founder, the major crypto project Aver, the founder of Aver has criticized the United Kingdom's financial promotions regime, warning that the country's stance on crypto advertising and digital asset onboarding is stifling growth inside the sector. It claims it wants to be a leader, which is true. The United Kingdom, a very long time ago, said they want to become the capital of cryptocurrencies. They want to become the hub of cryptocurrencies. Unfortunately, since then, we've had ridiculous government policies so far. None of them are crypto-related in any sort of way. And the ones that have come out in terms of crypto regulations have just stifled essentially innovation. So the UK government decided essentially that because there are a lot of scam crypto projects out there, they're just going to ban crypto promoting in general. Instead of filtering out bad actors to good actors, they're just going to ban crypto promoting in general, which is what they've done so far. Now, a few companies are promoting inside the United Kingdom. For example, Ripple is promoting inside the United Kingdom because obviously Ripple is a legitimate essential corporation. So if anybody has seen those Ripple ads pop up, the legit Ripple ads, not the scam Ripple ads that are popping up, but the real Ripple ads that are popping up where it says crypto's happening, it's happening with Ripple. If anybody's seen those ads, those are real ads, and those ads are allowed inside the United Kingdom because that's a legitimate company. Other ads, not so much. Now, he also argues that the rules designed to curb misleading essential crypto promotions have instead created unnecessary barriers for stablecoins and digital money products, making it harder for both users and developers to operate inside the United Kingdom. According to essentially the founder of Aver, the regime's one-size-fits-all approach treats all crypto assets identically, including stablecoins intended to function like digital pounds or dollars. This mismanagement, essentially, he said, ignores how stablecoins are increasingly used for payments and settlements, day-to-day finance. which I agree with 100%. It just seems like the UK is moving lazy towards crypto regulations, extremely lazy, putting everybody in the same category, essentially, just because there are a few scam projects out there inside the crypto space that did market through the UK, just saying everything is pretty much a scam. It's a bit lazy going forward for the UK government. But, the UK government is very focused on taxing people in everything. If you're thinking to yourself, the UK government is just taxing people to find a way to tax people in crypto, you are mistaken. The UK government essentially a few days ago released their manifold, which was about 43 essentially policies, all about taxes pretty much. So it's not just the crypto industry they're trying to squeeze money out of. It's pretty much everyone who lives in the UK they're trying to squeeze money out of. Industry players report that the onboarding users now involves long questionnaires, enforced cooling off periods, and repetitive friction points, even for basic essential actions like topping up balances. The results noted essentially as user experience far removed from what should be expected in modern fintech environments. The restrictions have also made it expensive for the UK crypto developers to build compliant, transparent, and competitive stablecoin products, which is true. The UK government is stifling crypto so much that it's actually, when you try to talk to companies about crypto in the UK, it's like you're telling them about a disease. They just don't want to work with you because the UK is not crypto friendly. Even though it may suggest it is, it's really not. And when you try to contact companies in the UK and tell them about cryptocurrencies, it genuinely seems like you're trying to give them some sort of new strain of COVID. They just end the phone call on you. As the consequences, more UK users are essentially shifting to overseas platforms, while founders are increasingly hesitant to build domestically. The same thing that was happening under Biden in the US, where crypto innovation was going essentially outside the country, mostly to Dubai or Singapore. Same thing is happening in the UK. Most of the innovation inside the crypto space is just going away to the EU or to the US or to Dubai or to Singapore and so on. So the same thing is happening pretty much over here as well. And essentially, meanwhile, the Bank of England has issued its own warning on the topic, but the opposite angle. Deputy Governor Sarah essentially Breeden has said that the adopting weaker stablecoin regulations could expose the UK's financial systems to significantly unstable, essentially potentially triggering liquidity shocks or even credit crunch. She noted that the country's moves to integrate digital currencies into the Ministry of Finance regulators must account for a different set of risk emerging from new forms of money. So, moving on from the UK's treacherous footsteps, as usual inside the crypto space, I mean, the UK has achieved absolutely jack shit, to be fair. The UK has essentially achieved jack S, pretty much. Sorry for the other word that I used on the live show, slipped out, but that's pretty much is what's happening in the UK. Now, moving on from the UK and essentially Canada and Australia and South Korea and Japan to the Philippines. The Philippines is set to tap a $60 billion market with tokenized assets by 2030. The Philippines is positioning itself as a global pioneer in tokenized assets. Before we talk about that, let's go to the comment section first. Let's see what's happening there, and then we go straight into the next news on tonight's live. So let's see where we're at. So the comment section, we were at here. Carry on. Even Miles on CMF, Joe, good to see you. How you doing? What date is the starting date? Back date, 1st of January. Sounds like I'm heading to MEXceedent. Don't worry, HMRC, we pay our crypto taxes to you. Even Miles on CMF, how you doing? I'm doing great. Peg, good to see you as well. Happy holidays. If you think this is the best group, not one of the best groups, but the best group online in crypto, post 100. Let's go. If you think this is the best group, let's go, Scott. Let's go, Bull. Go, Scott. Let's go. When we know we're right about XRP after it reaches potential of 50% of its potential. Oh man, I keep on missing you. Then I realized my notifications weren't set to all. Martin, good to see you. How you doing? Let's go. Miles, great information, though less is one of your strengths. Let's go. Now, Philippines. Philippines is positioning itself as a global pioneer in tokenized finance with a new report essentially estimating a $60 billion market for tokenized assets by 2030. The study released essentially by Project Benin, a collaboration between the Philippines and Digital Asset Exchange, PDAX essentially, Senate's capital and on-go essentially capital projects that tokenize public entities. Government bonds, mutual funds, and other assets will be a major driver of the country's digital financial growth. According to essentially the country's, according to the report, the public equities could account for $26 billion of the market. Government essentially bonds, $24 billion, mutual funds, $6 billion, and other asset classes, $4 billion. Tokenized essentially government bonds distributed via PDEX, a Gcash, have already lowered the minimum investment to just P500, making it the first time investing accessible nationwide. Blockchain wallets are already mainstream in the Philippines, said the CEO of PDEX. The infrastructure exists in the pockets of millions. Our goal is to link this to regulated real-world financial products, with over 14 essentially per capita with over 14% of the Filipinos essentially holding crypto, compared to the under 5% essentially owning traditional investments. The report underscores the potential for blockchain leap essentially for conventional finance. Blockchain integration also essentially fuels financial inclusion. The Bureau of Treasury partnership with PDEX and Gcash serves as a case study essentially in the broadening retail access to government bonds. Treasury essentially Sharon highlighted the initiative as a essentially bold leap forward, democratizing access to public financial instruments. PDEX and Coins.ph already integrate essentially blockchain-enabled wallets, allowing users to hold crypto and tokenize assets without overhauling traditional infrastructure. So, Philippines is about to be entering the crypto space in 2026, and they're bringing a $60 billion portfolio with them to enter the crypto space. So far we have 7 massive behemoths out of Japan wanting to join the crypto space, $2.5 trillion portfolio altogether. $60 billion essential portfolio about to be joining from the Philippines 2026 as well. More institutions are coming in 2026, more banks are coming, more regulations are coming in 2026. So it seems like the institutional essentially revolution inside the crypto space is about to be starting soon. Now, moving on from that to AWS, the Amazon server situation. Now, Amazon had a server situation a few days ago, but the reason why I'm bringing this up now is because Consensus has revealed some information on that matter. So, the majority of the Web3 space relies on Web2 technology, pretty much say cloud servers, which doesn't really give the image of Web3 or decentralization any sort of a way, or the DeFi space. So the AWS outage underscores Web3's essentially reliance on centralized essentially infrastructure. Services like Coinbase, Solana, and Ethereum experienced significant disruptions regarding AWS's situation. Just want to mention that one more time for the people in the back. The AWS, the Amazon server situation, the outage situation that we had, impacted services like Coinbase, Solana, and Ethereum because they're reliant on old tech, but look like new tech. Simplest way to put it. Experienced significant disruptions, highlighting the need for decentralized solutions. Major affected areas include transaction slowdowns and node failures across various blockchain ecosystems. A significant AWS outage occurred on October 20th, 2025, impacting Web3 platforms and cryptocurrency operations globally, emphasizing resilience, essentially reliance on centralized infrastructure. Major disruptions on this matter essentially affecting Ethereum and Solana networks, raising decentralization concerns because isn't Solana supposed to be decentralized and isn't Ethereum supposed to be decentralized? So why is Amazon servers affecting it? The October 2025 AWS outage essentially significantly affected the Web3 ecosystem, demonstrating the vulnerabilities associated with centralized infrastructure. Coinbase, Solana, and Ethereum operations were notably disrupted, underscoring the industry's dependency on the centralized essentially providers. Now, stakeholders have essentially initiated a shift towards decentralized solutions to mitigate such risks to happen again. Consensus, for example, introduced a new decentralized infrastructure solution. This move essentially aims to reduce dependence on cloud servers and enhances the resilience of the crypto industry. The financial implications of the outage were immediate, affecting transaction speeds and volumes across several platforms. Solana and Ethereum were the most affected by this scenario. Institutional interest in decentralized alternatives has surged post-outage, pushing essentially firms like Even Layer to accelerate new offerings. Financial institutions are also increasingly leaning towards technologies that promise greater autonomy from traditional cloud servers and potential financial savings. Looking ahead, the industry aims to bolster its infrastructure. The growth of decentralized technologies is likely to be essentially increased funding and development focus, transforming how crypto platforms operate and reduce resilience on centralized services. This may lead to heightened regulatory interest as decentralized systems expand. So this is pretty much on the side of companies like AWS, for example, Amazon, Google Cloud servers, and so on. Are they just going to be sitting on the sidelines and letting the decentralization space grow and people shift over from centralized essential cloud servers to decentralization scenarios? Or are they going to put their foot down? Because what I mean by that is regarding the JP Morgan situation of MSTR stock. Now, moving on, essentially, we'll come back to that JP Morgan situation a little bit later on tonight's live. But moving on from AWS situations, the outage situations, to a tokenized fund, a 5 billion euro tokenized essentially fund. Amundi tokenizes 5 billion euros fund on Ethereum blockchain, starting with Ethereum blockchain. Amundi has launched its 5 billion money market fund on Ethereum blockchain, leveraging essentially SaaS technology, marking a significant financial transformation in Paris. According to a public announcement, the tokenization hurdles broader blockchain adoption in traditional finance, enhancing transactions on efficiency and increasing investor access without immediate market upheavals. Europe's largest asset manager, Amundi, has tokenized its 5 billion euro portfolio money market fund on Ethereum blockchain, starting with Ethereum blockchain. This essentially initiative represents a significant shift in asset management strategies. Tokenization is aimed at enhancing transaction efficiency and investment accessibility. Amundi, in collaboration with Sears, essentially leverages the Ethereum blockchain to offer 24/7 transaction capabilities. The move aims to broaden distribution channels and improve client access, with future plans for stablecoin and digital currency integration. The tokenization affects the financial sector by allowing investors to engage in more dynamic transactions. The integration also seeks to attract a broader consistency of essentially investors, potentially impacting market dynamics within the asset management essentially industry. This move highlights potential shifts in financial markets, bridging traditional finance and blockchain technology. Jean from Amundi essentially emphasized the transformative potential of tokenization in expanding their digital asset initiatives globally. As this tokenization initiative unfolds, the role of Ethereum as the leading platform, starting leading platform for the real-world asset tokenization grows. The secure infrastructure essentially could influence future financial technological integrations, potentially altering market strategies of global asset managers. With an expanding tokenized asset management on Ethereum, Amundi's involvement adds to platform's credibility as well. The tokenization of assets in transformation set to accelerate in the coming years around the world. The first initiative on the money market fund demonstrates our expertise and the robustness of our methodology in essentially covering concrete use cases. Amundi will continue and expand its tokenization initiatives to benefit its clients in France and internationally. So they're starting with Ethereum and moving beyond that essentially later on. Now, moving on essentially from Paris to Uzbekistan. The reason why we're going to be talking about Uzbekistan, and it's a country that we've talked about maybe 2-3 times on this live show pretty much ever, is because Uzbekistan is about to be legalizing stablecoins. Why is this relative to you if you're inside a crypto space anywhere around the world? Because Russia uses Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan as a money market essentially entering situation. So Russia uses these two countries to funnel money around inside the crypto space, because obviously Russia is sanctioned, so they use a lot of USDT. So by legalizing stable coins through Uzbekistan, it's mostly because Russia is also going to be pushing their money through Uzbekistan as well, which again means more liquidity for the crypto space essentially moving forward. Uzbekistan's central bank, alongside the National Agency for Prospective Projects, will recognize stablecoins as legal tender from January 1st, 2026. Big step. Integrating regulated digital assets into its financial framework. Pioneering stablecoin regulations aligns Uzbekistan with broader Central Asian digital finance trends and promising essentially potential global influence, yet details on economic impacts remains limited until closer to its 2026 launch. Uzbekistan and the National Agency for Prospective Projects, Timur, the central bank essentially chairman, emphasized the need for strict regulatory oversight on cryptocurrency activities to ensure economic stability. The new financial regulatory will impact essentially financial industries and markets by allowing stablecoin issuance and tokenized essentially trading on licensed stock exchanges. The decision essentially mirrors regional trends and ambitions in neighboring countries such as Kazakhstan's financial implications, includes potential changes to capital flows and investment strategies. Kazakhstan, alongside Uzbekistan is going to be legalizing stablecoins starting January 1st, 2026. Kazakhstan is going to be legalizing Bitcoin mining in 2026. Focus shifts to testing essentially tokenized securities and payment systems and controlled sandboxes. Timur also essentially remarked crypto activities should be done under strict controls, as it will have serious impacts on monetary policies, direct impacts on major stablecoins or cryptocurrencies, and also pioneering trends in Central Asia provide a framework for digital asset integration, while protecting monetary policy data, on-chain transactions, and external feedback will shape future steps and regulatory adjustments in this emerging market initiative. I can say one thing, I'll be honest, I can say one thing regarding the Uzbekistan and essentially Kazakhstan situation. It's at least they're moving at a much more faster pace than the majority of countries around the world. I mean, the UK is moving at a snail's pace. And then you have countries essentially like Uzbekistan who are fast tracking their crypto regulations because they understand that that is the future, that is where the money's at, and so on, while the UK is still contemplating utter trash, to be fairly honest, in terms of regulations. It's not just the UK, there's a lot of countries that are moving incredibly slow. Now, moving on from Uzbekistan essentially and Kazakhstan to Ukraine. Before we talk about Ukraine, let's start the comment section first. Let's see what's happening there, and then we'll go straight into the next news. And the Ukraine news is a funny one. It's a news that some people should have seen coming, and some people will probably be shocked. So let's see where we're at inside the comment section. We were at here. Hell yeah, tell it like it is, Miles. Let's go, Ray. Regarding what I said, yep. Hi, Miles. Richard, good to see you. How you doing, Mike? Let's go. Like and repost, guys. Facts. John, let's go. If you haven't smashed the like buttons or retweet buttons, I don't know what you're doing. Smash the like buttons and smash the retweet buttons. And put a comment outside the live. If you have, honestly, thank you so much. Hit the like buttons. Let's go. Submit your questions to Miles. Let's go. Good questions. The US lags on many things. Hi, Miles and family. Alex, good to see you. How you doing? Share the live. Let's go. I read an article that BlackRock may be waiting until regulations before they issue an XRP ETF. Yeah, I would say yes and no. I would say mostly I would say lean towards yes, because it is also something that I said about 6 months ago. About 6 months ago, 5 months ago, I said same thing. I said that BlackRock in terms of ETFs. Because everybody kept on asking, why is XRP, and BlackRock not coming together? Then I said, essentially, BlackRock moves at doesn't operate in gray areas. It can if it wants to. Nobody's going to say anything to them, but it doesn't operate in gray areas. And then somewhere down the road, we had essentially Larry Fink on the CNBC Squashbox News, being asked the question, you have a Bitcoin ETF, you have Ethereum ETF, what about an XRP ETF? And then he said, I can't talk about that one, which is an indication that he's under an NDA. Otherwise, you could have just said, no, there's no XRP ETF. Or yes, there is an XRP ETF. Or we're thinking about an XRP ETF. But saying the words of, I can't talk about that, that's an indication of an NDA. So yeah, I would say maybe they are waiting for essentially regulations, which is something I said a while ago, because they don't want to operate in gray areas. Hi, Miles and family. Good to see you, Ian. How you doing? Hi, Scott. Okay. Now, Ukraine. This one's a funny one. An interesting one. So, some people, again, might be shocked about this news, and some people might not be so shocked about this news. But it seems like the billions of dollars Ukraine was receiving from the US under Biden's authority and Biden's administration of circus freaks, it seems like Zelensky's been embezzling money. But apparently, it's not Zelensky. It's the second man in charge that's been stealing money from the top every time they've received it. It's all over the news. This is pretty much factual information at this point. It's on the BBC. It's on The Guardian. It's on The Independent. It's on every single news channel. They're talking about it right now regarding Zelensky's second man has been stealing money from all the billions they've received to go up against Russia. Interesting. I mean, how's that going to go down with the Ukrainian soldiers who lost their lives at battle for thinking they're saving their country, while the people on top who are running Ukraine, like Zelensky and his greedy politicians, were stealing money, while ordinary Ukrainians lost their lives at war? I mean, what word could you describe people like that? Shameful, greedy, or another word starting with B? It's BA, not the BI word. Now, the revelation that the anti-corruption police are searching essentially the property of Zelensky's chief of staff. Now, I'm not buying this even for a second, that Zelensky had nothing to do with the money disappearing. That it's the guy who's second in charge in Ukraine that's been embezzling the money. It's got nothing to Zelensky, and Zelensky had no idea that money was being essentially stolen, and that the second guy in charge was the one that's stealing. I don't buy that even for a second. Zelensky's hands are dirty as much as the person next to him. And I saw this coming by a mile away regarding all the billions that they've been sending. The revelation that the anti-corruption police right now in Ukraine are searching for the property of essentially Zelensky's chief of staff, Andriy, could have huge repercussions for the Ukrainian political scene and possibly for peace negotiations as well. Russians are making fun of Ukraine right now for the disappearing of money that they were receiving. And you can't blame them. And it does also show that there's a reason why Zelensky never wanted this war to end, because then the money would stop. And if the money stops, the questions start coming. Where's all the money you received? Is it hard to, and they're saying essentially that maybe Zelensky didn't want to end the war because he doesn't want to give up parts of Ukraine. Well, they did start the war technically. But putting that aside, it is hard to overstate the significance of Yermak and in the Ukrainian political system. He combines multiple essentially roles of Zelensky, most trusted sounding board, domestic political enforcer, controller of access to the president, main point of conduct for foreign politicians, and chief peace negotiator. Andriy is such a powerful chief of staff that people who know how the president's office operates describe his relationship with Zelensky as like brothers. Those who have dealt with essentially Andriy, both inside and outside Ukraine, describe him as a workaholic and a ruthless operator. And I'm guessing now a thief who has moved against alternative centers of political influence in the country and has systematically worked to acquire political power. I can guess why. I mean, power, money, stealing. He's almost a politician. With such influence inevitable comes enemies, and essentially there are few in Ukraine elite who have positive views of Yermak, through essentially many admire his work ethics and political skills. Foreign politicians have often essentially appreciated knowing they can use Yermak as a direct line to the president, but some have found him a frustrating essentially interlocutor. Now, and figures inside the Trump White House are known to have expressed a preference for dealing with essentially Rostam instead of essentially Andriy. Up to now, Zelensky has always essentially resisted calls to fire essentially Andriy or even clip his wings. But if essentially Andriy is now caught up in a corruption scandal, these are likely to get louder. Politically, getting rid of his chief of staff might be Zelensky's smartest move. But those who know both men say that relationship is so close, it is hard to imagine Zelensky is taking that step. I suppose it's theoretically possible that Zelensky could function without him, but in practice, I can't imagine that ever happening. One former senior official was actually confined a couple of months ago. So, Biden's corruption administration, who started the Ukraine and Russian war, who embezzled billions of tax-paying US dollars money to essentially Zelensky and his fraud department, have embezzled money. I mean, who saw that one coming? You know, everybody thought Zelensky was such an honest man. You know, he's receiving billions to save his country, receiving billions to, go up against Russia. All the soldiers they lost in Ukraine, for what? Zelensky is rich, his politician friends are rich, and ordinary people lost their lives in the middle. I guess that means welcome to reality. That's unfortunately how the world operates. Also, on the topic of Biden's administration of circus freaks and warmongers, Trump is going to be essentially voiding all allegedly signed documents by Biden's auto pen, which I'm very happy about. Every single person who used Biden because he was barely awake and his auto pen to sign whatever they wanted should be held accountable and put into prison for life, in my opinion. They should not be getting a house arrest if it comes down to it. They should not be getting house arrest. Any politician that used Biden's auto pen for anything should be getting life in prison, in my opinion, because it's time that politicians also paid the price when they do something wrong. Honestly, they could pretty much get away with anything they want. And this is why, I like the idea of a Trump presidency, because stuff like this makes Democrats not be able to sleep at night. So, on this topic, Trump to void all documents allegedly essentially signed by Biden via his auto pen threatens perjury charges. President Donald Trump announced today he is terminating all documents allegedly signed by former President Joe Biden with the auto pen. In the Truth Social post today, Trump claimed 92%, that's ridiculously high, 92% of documents signed during Biden's presidency were done so with this device, an auto pen. The auto pen is not allowed to be used if approval is not specially given by the President of the United States, Trump wrote. He said, the radical left lunatics, which is a perfect description, the radical left lunatics circling Biden around the beautiful Roosevelt desk in the Oval Office took the presidency away from him. Trump said he's canceling all executive orders and anything else that was not directly signed by the crooked Joe Biden, because the people who operated the auto pen did so illegally. The auto pen device, which holds a real pen and signs paper using a handwriting template, automatically reproduces a person's signature with high accuracy. The US government has used auto pens since the Truman administration, and the Department of Justice Office for Legal Counsel previously confirmed the use of the device is legal for presidential signatures on legislations and executive acts, so long as it is authorized by the president. The use of an auto pen is completely legal, but the use of an auto pen with a president that is half asleep, not so much. However, Trump also claimed that Biden did not approve the signatures and that threatened to charge him with perjury if he says he was involved in the auto pen process, which I love even more. Trump coming out saying whoever used the auto pen to sign whatever law they wanted, to sign whatever thing they wanted in their own benefits and to save their own arse. And if Biden comes forward and says, no, I was fully awake when I was signing 62 documents in a space of a minute, then Biden will also be done for perjury. Beautiful. Which makes Biden think twice about coming forward. During Biden's presidency, he signed, during Biden's presidency, he signed 162 executive orders, in addition to hundreds of MOUs, proclamations, and notices within minutes. Biden could barely walk up a flight of stairs. He could barely speak, walk, run, do any sort of hand gestures, but he's able to, within minutes, just keep on signing documents. How? Nobody knows. Well, now we know, auto pen. Though Trump signed an executive order in January reciting nearly 80 Biden-era executive orders, some of those that appear to remain full in force and may now be subject to cancellation, including essentially Executive Order 14087, which lowers essentially prescription drugs costs in the US, Executive Order 14096, which centers around environmental justice, and Executive Order 1410, which cracks essentially down on developments and the use of artificial intelligence. Obviously, Biden's administration of circus freaks were against crypto and AI in general. So I hope Trump moves forward with this. I hope Trump moves forward with this, because anybody that abuses their position as a politician, honestly, anybody that abuses their position as a politician should be held accountable, whoever it may be. It could be a prime minister, it could be a president, it could be a senator or a governor, a judge, a supreme judge, whoever it may be, a mayor. If you are abusing your position as a politician, then you should be held accountable, which is the exact same thing that the Democrats were saying for the longest time. Democrats were coming out saying Trump should be held accountable for all the knocked up charges that they made up in their own heads. So now the tables are turned. The Democrats have to be held accountable for the 162 forms they signed essentially with Biden's auto pen. And I could bet you any money, honestly, I could bet you any money, if Trump moves forward with this, expect a lot of Democratic politicians just dropping out or disappearing. If they're facing prison sentencing, if they're facing essentially sentencing, expect a lot of Democratic positions either to be starting to love Trump. Honestly, expect Democratic politicians either to start loving Trump out of nowhere, or just saying, they're essentially resigning from their positions, or some of them might just take a very long vacation, disappear, if he moves this essentially forward. And I hope he does. I hope Trump moves this forward. Any politician that abuses their power should be held accountable, full stop. Now, moving on from the auto pen situation to a trader that opens a massive position. Now, before I talk about that, let's go to the comment section first. Let's see what's happening there, and then we go straight to the first news. Then we go straight to the next news. Let's see where we're at in the comment section. And I think everybody agrees with me that, these politicians should be put behind prison. Elizabeth Warren should definitely go to prison. Nancy Pelosi, there's a reason why she withdrew her app. Essentially, she out of nowhere resigned. Let's see where we're at. Yes, it is. I knew it was always thought he was skimming, money grabbing. Yep. Shame on him. Shame on him. Regarding Zelensky stealing money from the top. Yep. Zelensky gifted his wife $3.5 million Rolls Royce. Zelensky has essentially meant multiple real estates all over the world since he has come to power. Nowhere Ukrainian president embezzled. It clearly wasn't him, and it's the second man, crash dummy, who is guilty for sure, all corrupt. Facts. Is it true? It is terrible thing. We should not be sending money elsewhere from the American hurting economy. I agree with what Scott has said 100%, and I agree with what Ray has said 100% as well. But yeah, Scott, I agree with you. And no country should be sending money outside the country when their own country needs the money most. Last administration, president was an auto pen. I agree. If this was in Russia, we would not hear about it because Russia, well, people in Russia disappear when corrupt behavior of their politicians are revealed, which is true. Not surprised at all regarding Zelensky's situation. I agree. I was in Operation Desert Shield and Desert Storm, and no doubt it happened back then too, based on what I personally know and observed. I agree. All politicians, I believe you as well. All politicians in the US and worldwide do similar things, Democrats and Republicans. I agree as well. Yes, all politicians are corrupt. Genuinely, it doesn't matter what side you look at. It could be Democrats, it could be Republicans, it could be liberals, it could be the Green Party or the Independent Party. In general, a politician's core value is not to help the people, it's to steal from the people. Not the auto pen, a half-ass Steve Joe Biden, aka Sleepy Joe, outstanding Don. Shame though, circus freaks, yep, 100%. The validator. This is why I prefer Trump compared to politicians, because he's a businessman, and obviously he does have his flaws, but he's better than the rest for the time being. The validity of most political comments would appear to be valid if they weren't one-sided. Auto pens should be outlawed. I agree. Trump needs to stop threatening folks and see Epstein fall out. Miles Biden could barely walk up the stairs, and Trump can barely walk down the stairs. Both men are the same. No, Trump can walk down the stairs. Come on. Now, high-profile traders, essentially. So beforehand, we had a trader that put a massive short position on Bitcoin. And then we saw Bitcoin tumbling for about a space of a month, essentially. Now we have a trader out of nowhere putting a massive position on a long. So let me just repeat that one more time. We had a random trader out of nowhere put a massive short position about 30 days ago. And then the market started tumbling. The crypto market started tumbling. Now we have a massive long position opened up on the crypto space. A high-profile trader using the alias, the Data Nerd, opened a $84.19 million Bitcoin 3x long position on the Hyperliquid platform, signaling significant market sentiment. The substantial, essentially, trade underscores bullish momentum fueled by increased BTC activity and positive on-chain indicators, potentially propelling Bitcoin towards new highs and sparking market interest. The position essentially totaling $84.19 million was taken with a 3x leverage on Hyperliquid, signaling strong belief in Bitcoin's upward trajectory. Increased trading volumes suggest heightened market activity, with $50 billion turnover noted essentially on BTC to USDT pairs. With declining net BTC flows to exchanges and a surge in institutional accumulation, market sentiment tilts essentially bullishly. These factors also essentially may support Bitcoin's climb to a new resistant level. The substantial $84.19 million long position from a complete random person is an indication that are we on the upside again? Because we had a random short position opened up about 30 days ago, massive short position on Bitcoin, and then the market started tumbling straight after that news. Now we have a massive long position open. Is the market about to be going on the upside from this random person again? Research notes that extensive leverage positions can stir market trends and potentially drawing regulatory scrutiny, particularly if volatility spikes occur. Which also does reside with what Kathy Woods has said. Bitwise is essentially head of research director said from the European market space, and Ofra Hayes all suggesting we are on the uptrend going forward. Now, MicroStrategy is what we're going to talk about next on tonight's slide. Before we talk about MicroStrategy, there's been a situation that's been happening inside the crypto space, what the news that's going around regarding MicroStrategy versus JP Morgan, where JP Morgan started essentially squeezing and shorting essentially MSTR stocks to push them out of the way. And then essentially the crypto space found out and started betting against JP Morgan. And apparently JP Morgan has essentially lifted its essentially position on the short squeeze they were doing on MSTR stocks. So here's a little update on that matter. MicroStrategy stock rebounds despite the MSCI delisting campaign. So now that essentially they're not able to push essentially MSTR stocks out of the way, which is what JP Morgan was trying to do by making them sell their Bitcoin essentially, JP Morgan maybe have manipulated in a way to get MSTR stocks off the MSI, essentially off the MSCI. The price of MicroStrategy MSTR stock now strategy has rebounded today. November 28th, 2025, aimed essentially the MSCI delisting campaign. Following the rally, analysts and investors are now eyeing the $200 million milestone as the next possible essentially target. As the $200 essentially milestone as the next possible target. The stock experienced volatility in early November, fluctuating between $169 and $180, with an average volume of nearly 14 million shares. The MSTR stock largely mirrored the recent pullback in Bitcoin from its peak levels. In mid-November, MicroStrategy chairman Michael Saylor lost over $4 billion of personal wealth in 6 months as MSTR stock and Bitcoin prices slid. MSTR stock also dropped after reports that the MSCI is contemplating excluding companies like essentially MicroStrategy, with digital asset holdings exceeding 50% of total assets. Following the response from Saylor, essentially that strategy is a publicly traded company that uses Bitcoin as essentially productive capital, MSTR stock rebounded nearly 1%. According to crypto analysts, the delisting campaign of MicroStrategy from the MSCI and major indices is still on. The analyst noted that JP Morgan, essentially Morgan Stanley, and essentially MSCI are coordinating to devalue or delist MSTR from major stock indices. And Drin, essentially, who is the analyst that essentially found this out, argued that the move is not above risk management but strict takeover. The analyst noted that delisting MSTR stock from major indices would trigger full selling for MSTR, which means full selling for Bitcoin. MSCI essentially provides global stock indexes tracked by trillions in passive funds. Hence, if MSTR stock gets delisted, index trackers must sell shares, creating a forced liquidation on MSTR, which means, in other words, JP Morgan shifted their position, but they're squeezing MSTR from a different position now. The analyst explained that JP Morgan and Morgan Stanley are already launching leveraged IBIT products to capture displaced BTC from strategy. The analyst structure essentially the bank's move as a sequence of escalating discussions. It stated essentially it started with hedge fund managers Jim announcing BTC essentially direct purchase while shorting MSTR stock. The analyst described the move as a blunted attempt to sway sentiment, to move people away from essentially MicroStrategy and just say, why not buy Bitcoin? Why would you go for an MSTR stock? But the same thing could be applied with an ETF. Why go for a Bitcoin ETF when you can just buy a Bitcoin store yourself? Same thing applies. It's probably because of the safety reasons that some people would prefer to essentially, and the lazy reasons of people prefer going to an ETF rather than storing their cryptos themselves. The analyst views the act as hostile to raise selling pressure, especially since MicroStrategy stock was rallying on BTC gains. Other crypto stakeholders like Ledger's CTO, Charles, have also shown support for MicroStrategy, expressing displeasure about its potential removal from the top global stock indices. In an X post, Charles, essentially the Ledger's CTO, said the move is a desperate attempt to slow the momentum of the crypto market. In other words, JP Morgan is trying to disrupt the crypto market space. The Ledger CTO argued that the delisting is a pushback from traditional finance gatekeepers. In other words, JP Morgan. JP Morgan wants to rule the world inside the financial sector forever. Unfortunately, in a crypto world, the idea, as I said previously, of a bank account is no longer needed. If I can send wallet-to-wallet transactions all around the world, why the hell would I want a JP Morgan Chase account? Doesn't make sense to anyone, to be fairly honest. That's why banks were trying to get the stablecoin regulation, the Genius Act, to change a little bit so that they wouldn't have a $6 trillion outage out of banks, because people holding US dollars and stablecoins can earn some sort of rewards in the retail section, and the banks didn't like it. The banks hated the idea of the little guy earning a small percentage of rewards from staking their stablecoins, because the banks could offer something similar, but they won't, obviously, because they're greedy. So instead, they just want to shut it down completely. And this is why banks, honestly, the monopoly that banks have, it's just too much control, and it needs to end. And when you have companies like Ripple trying to go head-to-head with them, applying for a banking charter license, applying for a Fed account, people inside the crypto space, the same way people inside the crypto space are supporting MicroStrategy going up against essentially JP Morgan, these people inside the crypto space should be supporting Ripple going up against the banking sector as well. Because we know for a fact the reason why the SEC with Gary Gensler was so weaponized to go after Ripple, nothing will stop him in any sort of a way, was because he was weaponized by the banking sector. When Ripple applied for a Fed account, essentially Fed master account, and essentially banking charter license through the OCC, 42 banking associations went straight to the OCC and said, no, you shouldn't be giving them a banking charter license. Who do you think those 42 banking associations got their letters from? Who do you think essentially weaponized them in any sort of way to do that in the first place? JP Morgan. And they weren't the only ones. Because the banks know that they're losing their foothold the more we go into a digital world. So slowing it down a bit so they can figure out what their next move is going to be to still have control is what they're trying to do. Honestly, the same way people are supporting MicroStrategy is the same to go up against JP Morgan, is the same way people should be supporting Ripple to go up against JP Morgan or the banking sector in general. And putting the differences aside, if you hate XRP or love XRP or wherever you may stand in the spectrum, put your differences aside. Ripple is trying to achieve the exact same thing MicroStrategy is trying to achieve. Go up against JP Morgan or the banking sector in general. Because Ripple didn't need to apply for a banking license if the banks let them in, essentially. But the banks wanted to, some banks did, international banks did, they had no issues. It's just the bigger ones that essentially have issues. They want a piece of the pie, or they won't open the doors or essentially give the keys over. So Ripple decided, you know what? Instead of relying on you to open your doors, I'm just going to get my own license, and I don't need your keys to open the doors anymore. Honestly, putting your difference aside, as much as some people might hate XRP or Ripple in general, they are achieving the exact same thing, going up against the behemoths that have too much monopoly inside the financial sector. He believes that Bitcoin treasuries challenge corporate cash management norms, while stablecoins like USDT bypass banks for global payments. The paradigm shift is eventable. You either embrace it or you get disrupted, said the CTO of Ledger. Market analysts also view the negative comments about a potential MSTR delisting from the MSCI positively. Some forecasts said that MSTR stock's price could hit $200 in the short term. Meanwhile, TipRanks analysts gave 14 buy ratings and 0 sell ratings for MSTR. They also predicted an average target of $524. They are pointing out that MicroStrategy balance sheet remains safe as long as Bitcoin stays above the range of $87,300. As of this writing, BTC still has rallied back towards the 90,000 levels. Honestly, the crypto space is rallying behind MicroStrategy, rally behind Ripple, because they are doing the exact same thing, and they've been doing it for much more longer time than strategy has, but than MicroStrategy has, to be fairly honest. Ripple's been going head-to-head with these monopolies for the longest time. Strategy's just got into the game going head-to-head with them. On the topic of Ripple, Ripple stablecoin, RLUSD, if you haven't seen it, or if you have seen it, now accepted in Abu Dhabi. RLUSD now accepted fiat reference token, essentially used for Abu Dhabi's ADGM. Ripple, a financial technology company that offers essential crypto solutions for businesses, announced that USD-backed stablecoin Ripple RLUSD has been recognized as an accepted fiat reference token by the Abu Dhabi Financial Services Regulatory Authority, FSRA, enabling use within the ADGM, the International Financial Center of Abu Dhabi, the capital of the United Arab Emirates, the UAE. RLUSD is now eligible for use by authorized persons licensed by the FSRA to carry out applicable essentially regulated activities, provided that they satisfy and maintain compliance within firm levels regulatory obligations relevant to the use of fiat reference tokens. You know why things like this can happen in Abu Dhabi, or they can happen in UAE or in Singapore or in Japan? Because the same monopoly structure that's going on in the US isn't being applied in these jurisdictions. Honestly, it's because companies like JP Morgan don't exist in these countries. And because banks like JP Morgan don't exist, obviously their branches exist, but their headquarters is what I'm talking about. Because banks like JP Morgan headquarters don't exist essentially in these jurisdictions, stuff like this don't happen. There's no such thing as a monopoly going on over there. Noting that ADMG is standing as a leading international financial center known for its progressive regulatory standards, this represents a further significant step in establishing Ripple stablecoin as a trust-compliant settlement asset in the Middle East. In addition, the FSRA recognition of RLUSD also recently received approvals from other regulators within the region. Issued under the New York Department of Financial Services, essentially limited purpose trust company charter, RLUSD has essentially reached a market capitalization of over $1.2 billion since its launch in late 2024, with safeguards including a 1-to-1 ratio of USD backing by high quality liquid assets, strict reserves, management and asset segregation, third-party sortations, and redemption rights. RLUSD is designed to meet the highest expectations for both regulators and institutional use. This regulatory clarity is vital for enabling the use of RLUSD in key enterprises and use cases, including integration into Ripple's cross-border payment solution, enabling on and off ramps into the crypto ecosystem, and supporting capital markets via Ripple Prime. RLUSD's acknowledgement in Abu Dhabi builds on Ripple's momentum across the Middle East. Ripple recently announced also a partnership in Bahrain, which sees the company taking its first steps into the kingdom. These announcements follow earlier updates also such as the news of Zanbank and Mamo as the customers to adapt Ripple's blockchain-enabled payments offering in the UAE. As noted in the update, Ripple is a financial technology company that offers crypto solutions for businesses. Ripple Payments uses blockchains to make cross-border payments widely accessible. Ripple Custody offers customers essentially a way to store and manage digital assets. And via Ripple Prime, the company reportedly offers a prime brokerage for institutional customers. Ripple stablecoin RLUSD and the cryptocurrency XRP are leveraged across these solutions to make traditional finance more efficient and enable new ways to utilize digital assets. Honestly, everybody inside the crypto space, for the people that are watching this live show, and already if you haven't smashed the like buttons, smash the like buttons, smash the retweet buttons, and let's get this out there. Honestly, if you haven't already smashed the like buttons or retweet buttons, smash them now. Smash the like buttons and smash the retweet buttons, and put a comment outside the live as well on X right now, because I want this to get out there. Because the war inside the crypto space needs to end. Honestly, the war that we have inside the crypto space of this is better than that, or essentially XRP versus Chainlink, or XRP versus Solana, or XRP versus Bitcoin, XRP, this war needs to end. And we should all be uniting against it. Essentially, we should all be uniting against the monopoly that's trying to essentially create this difference between us. Because Ripple is honestly going head to head with these behemoths that have so much monopoly on the financial sector. And instead of essentially people rallying up behind Ripple, not everyone, but instead of some people rallying up behind Ripple, the same way they're rallying up behind MSTR and MicroStrategy and strategy, in other words, to go up against JP Morgan, why aren't you rallying up against, essentially behind Ripple to go up against the behemoths as well? Because Ripple will bring so much more achievements for the crypto space than MSTR can. I'm not saying MSTR isn't a brilliant, and I'm not saying essentially MSTR couldn't bring anything towards the table. It can. But what Ripple is bringing towards the table is regulations, pushing the crypto space further and further inside the financial sector. So if you are somebody out there that is rallying up behind MicroStrategy, stand behind Ripple too. Honestly, the war that we have inside the crypto space needs to end. It genuinely needs to end. This XRP versus Chainlink, XRP versus essentially Litecoin, XRP versus Solana, it needs to end. Because all that's doing is separating us inside the crypto space, which is what they love. Honestly, these big institutions, these hedge funds, these family offices, they love it when people start arguing inside the crypto space. We're the best. Look at me. I'm the best. Look at me. They're loving it. They're laughing their heads off that we're arguing between ourselves of who's the best. How about we start rallying up behind companies inside the crypto space that are actually trying to bring change towards the crypto space, that are actually trying to push utility forward? So I say, if you are somebody who's standing behind such a MicroStrategy, stand behind Ripple also, because they're also trying to bring so much change towards the crypto space for the better. And it's not just for XRP. Indirectly, it impacts in a positive way the rest of the crypto space that also have utility. On that note, we have come to the endings of tonight's live. This was the CMF Live. It stands for Crypto Mouse Family. My name is essentially Mouse. You can tune to this live Monday, Friday, 10 p.m., long time onwards for the most recent news regarding cryptocurrencies, CBDCs, AI, politics, and regulations. This was episode 411 of the CMF Live. And the disclaimer of this live, as always, is no financial advice, no political advice, and whatever I say is only for entertainment purposes. Smash the like buttons, smash the retweet buttons, and get this live show out there. Before we do go, let's go inside the comment section first. This was happening there, and then we will call it a night. So sick of this roller coaster manipulation of these people. Can't wait for the Clarity Act. I agree with you, Mickey, 100%. Regarding the Clarity Act, apparently 4th of December or 8th of December is going to be the sit-down. You seem to be missing my question. You just want to know why we are waiting for the Clarity Act when XRP already has legal clarity. The Clarity Act is for the institutions and banks. The reason why we're waiting for a Clarity Act is because the banks and institutions need clarity. Yes, XRP in itself is essentially regulated, but the banks and institutions would still be operating in a gray area because they don't know where they're going to put their footsteps. So they need the clarity. The Clarity Act is not just for the crypto space. It's also for the banks and institutions to know where they're standing. That's why we need the Clarity Act. If you would become rich, become a politician, or invest in XRP. Facts. I agree with Scott. Scott said, I'm tired of Pelosi, Warren, Schumer, and I'm a Democrat. Let's go, Scott. Once Ripple gets their skinny license from the Fed, will Ripple then apply for a full Fed license after a while? I would so 100%, because once they get their foot in the door, they can expand even further. The banks are losing out to Ripple instead of joining Ripple. Facts. The Ripple haters are wasting time instead of investing energy in their future, aka bottom line. The XRP haters are wasting time instead of investing energy. Yep, I agree with you, Scott. 100% facts. Utility. Let's go, Ray. Don't you worry. Don't you worry, big truck. I like your Chris. I like being educated. Let's go, Martin. I agree with. Good night, Miles, and all the same. Thank you for a great live and the news. See you Monday. It's JP. See you Monday, same time as usual. Thanks, Miles. Have a great night, and see you tomorrow. See you tomorrow, same time. Artistic, see you on Monday, same timing as usual. Good night, Miles and CMF family, and see you Monday. Funky brother, see you Monday, same time as usual. Night, Miles and CMF. Have a wonderful weekend. Let's go, Joe. See you on Monday, same time as usual. Good night, Miles and CMF. Have a great weekend, and see you Monday. Mike, see you on Monday, same time as usual as well. Scott, see you on Monday, same time as usual. Thank you, Miles. Good night, everyone. Let's go, Stormy. Outstanding show tonight. Everyone have a great weekend because today is Friday. Let's go. Good night, Miles and Ray. See you tomorrow, same time as usual. See you on Monday, same time as usual, Ray. Stormy, see you on Monday, same time as usual as well. Good night, Miles and CMF. Let's go, Scott. See you on Monday, same time as usual. Have a wonderful weekend, YouTube brother. Great live as always. Thank you, Miles. Thank you so much, Miles. Have another night. All let's go, Lena. See you on Monday, same time as usual as well. Good night, Miles and CMF. Thanks for great news. Have a great weekend. See you on Monday. Have a great weekend as well. See you on Monday, same time as usual. Share the live. Leave a post outside the live. Love you guys. Let's go, Scott. Facts. Smash the like buttons. Smash the retweet buttons if you haven't already. I'll see everybody on Monday, same time as usual, 10 p.m. London time onwards for the next episode of the CMF Live. Thanks, Miles. Have a great weekend. Let's go, CMF. Let's go, Shelly. See you on Monday, same time as usual as well. Have a great weekend. Good night, everyone. Let's go, Naughty. See you on Monday as well. Have a great weekend. Mike, let's go, brother. See you on Monday, same time as usual. Over and out. Let's go, Martin. Everyone inside CMF, and if you're watching this for the first time ever, have a great weekend, everyone. See you on Monday for the next episode of the CMF Live. Episode 412 will be on Monday. Everybody have a great weekend. Have a great day, all night, wherever you are around the world, CMF members. Love you all. See you on Monday, same time as usual. See you on Monday. Smash the like button, smash the retweet buttons if you already haven't. If you have, thank you so much. And one love, thank you so much for the donation as well earlier on the first part of the live show. Thanks so much for the donation as well. See you on Monday, same time as usual. And the disclaimer of this live show: no financial advice, no political advice, no financial advice, no political advice, and whatever I say is for entertainment purposes only.